recognize that tune, and you know it's time for Relics Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting and relic hunting. You can call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. You're listening to Relics Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. All right, we're live again from the foothills of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee along the Cumberland River, and we're looking to have a good show tonight. We've got a young man out of Virginia that we're going to be talking to in just a moment, and somewhere along the way tonight, we're expecting a call, a live update from the bone hunt up in New Hampshire, where Heath Jones and Butch Holcombe are at. So I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Probably about 20 till or something like that, but we're looking forward to that. And I am your host, Diggin with 7.
And I am your co-host, Tennessee Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. Been a rainy time in our area here over the last, well, I guess started earlier in the week, maybe Sunday, didn't it? And it's rained and rained and rained, I tell you.
I think we've had 5 inches of rain in the last 4 days, and then of course, I mean it's been terrible. I was ready to get out a little bit this evening, so. Well, but here we've already got a lot of people in the chat. We've got Bill, we've got Gordon. There's Nick. We've got Ohio Relic Hunter in the house. There's Woody Jones. Hey Matt. Hey, I see Matt out on the chat. There's Jeff Ford. So we really appreciate you guys listening in. Yeah, we do. And I'm sure that the house will fill up a little bit more as we get along. We've got a guy that on tonight that we met, and he actually was on our live broadcast at DIV 40. Young man by the name of Matt Howell. I was really, really impressed with him whenever I met him. Got to hunt with him a little bit. He was on our show. He's got a good voice presence. He does some great videos. Got a Facebook page, and I can't say anything tonight. I'm going to have to get me a drink of water here. But anyway, Matt Howell, good to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, fellas. It's an honor to be on the show.
Well, it's an honor.
We really appreciate it. It's our honor. So, but we like Lois said, we met you in Virginia, and of course, we had a great time. I mean, actually, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have found some of the finds we found. So, I mean, it was really nice meeting you there, and we could tell you had a lot of knowledge as soon as we met you. So.
No doubt about that, and y'all had a pretty good group at that hunt, and then you hunted DIV 41 as well, didn't you? Name off some of your buds that hunted with you there.
So when I end up going to the DIVs, I keep a pretty tight group. It's generally me and 4 other gentlemen: Jamie Henley, Ross Walker, Bruce Adwell, and Ricky Ladd. And Jim Ingram as well. He's a guy who is up from Pennsylvania, and he'll filter in our group in and out, and not all of us can make it every time, but that's pretty much the core group of guys we hunt with.
Yeah, and we got to meet some of those, if not all of them, at the show that night. Y'all brought a group in and had at one of the front tables there, and we had a real good group there that came and listened to us that night. And me and Jeff are hoping that some of those guys will call in. If you want to, Jeff, go ahead and give the listeners the call-in number, and then you can put it in chat also.
And there you go. Call-in number is 270-495-0315.
There you go. So, and it just popped up in the chat, too. And I'll tell you guys, I should have said something, I guess, to begin with. The last show that me and Jeff did, we had Spreaker drop out on us, and we actually lost part of the first of our show. So if you didn't listen to it live, and if you listened to it live, you missed a few things yourself. But I salvaged as much as I could from that. But I upgraded a bunch of things here in the studio and bought some new equipment too. So we've actually got a backup external audio drive that we're recording the whole show on there. So I engineered and hosted History Seekers Tuesday night, and we didn't have a problem one, and I'm hoping that we don't tonight. But if we do, the archive will have the entire show. I guarantee you that. We won't have that problem again. All it takes is a little bit of money, ain't it, Jeff?
That's all it takes, and you've got plenty of it. So.
I don't know who's been talking to you, but that's not the case. Hey, Matt, tell us about some of the good finds that you guys found on one thing. And I was actually digging. Let's see, what was I digging? I was digging a triangle that I found, and then I found a drop 58 just right after that. But there was a guy above me, and he said, "There's a guy in the back here that has found a Company B letter." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Matt Howell." I said, "Matt Howell? I know Matt Howell." And so tell us about that find.
So that was day two. I kind of like you guys. I struggled. I think we walked around quite some pretty dense woods. Not even woods, a thicket that you couldn't move a machine through the first day. But the second day, we got a little heads up from a couple guys about a little better spot where the New York camp really was. And about my fourth or fifth target was probably just a little smaller than a dime, a really nice little company letter B. And I think that would have been a Kepi B. Would have went, and I think from what I've researched, it would have went in between like a wreath, and they would have had the company letter right in the center of in that wreath, and maybe with the I guess the actual company numbers as well.
Yeah, all three of us. Me and Jeff and you and some of your guys, we got in that thicket the first thing on the first morning. And what did we say about that thicket, Jeff, and the rabbit?
Oh, yeah, tell them Loy said he seen a rabbit walk up to the thicket and shake his head and turn around and go back. So, I mean, but it was a thicket. Everybody that's listening and watches our videos, we hunt thickets. But, I mean, this was a thicket that was unhuntable. I mean, you had to get in there and stomp the stuff down before you could even swing a coil anywhere. So, I mean, it was terrible. And I lasted maybe 20 minutes in this thicket, and I was like, man, it's something else has got to be down here where you can swing. So, but, I mean, I guess there was a few good finds come out of that thicket.
Well, if we'd have only known and just went to the other side of the road and down the side of that hill that first day, because there was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 New York buttons got off that hill that first and second day. And by the time we got there, it was pretty well picked over, you know. But if we'd have just known and just went on the other side, of course, I wanted to stay close to that rock wall, but really didn't pay out. And it tickled me to death because I saw Matt, and he was coming out, and he had found a deer, skull and horns that didn't make it out of the thicket, got in there and died before he could get out, didn't he, Matt?
Yes, he did. And I said, well, if he's in here and he didn't make it out, I better get out of here now.
You couldn't even swim.
Yeah, that was pretty good. He got in there and couldn't get out. So, I mean, it was terrible. And you were talking about where everybody was finding New York buttons the first day. I mean, you would walk up this road, and of course there was a couple that's in the chat that walked this road. And you walk this road for probably 10 minutes, and then it was uphill both ways. And then you get up there, and you can't see nothing. You just see thickets on each side of you. And there was one old deer stand right next to the road that looked like it'd been put there in probably the 1920s. But right over one, I guess it would be on the left side of the road, it kind of cleared up, and you couldn't see it until, you got over there. So that's why Loy and I missed a lot of the New York buttons. So.
Yeah. Jeff Ford said, I just passed right by that thicket. Loy and Jeff are animals. I wish he'd have hollered at us. But then that was a tough hunt. I was really surprised whenever I saw some of the finds that were found on DIV 40 because, now Earl from Virginia, he found a U.S. box plate. He hunted with us or roomed with us. Never did hunt with us. And that first morning we walked in there with him, and I never did see him until that night at the motel. He just disappeared. And you can't keep up with Earl. He's just he's moving all the time. But there were some. I
bet he walks 20 miles a day when he's out there hunting. I've hunted with him a few times, and like you said, Loy, you meet him that morning, and then as soon as he gets that coil on the ground, he's gone.
He is, and I'm kind of like Missouri Mike. Plugmaster Ford said it took Missouri Mike 5 hours to get back to the New York camp. I don't think it took that long, but it felt like it. I had to stop and rest. There was 2 or 3 times that I had to stop and rest on that. But what did you finally pull out of that, Matt? Out of that DIV 40?
It's funny. I had a day that. The second day was my best, and I didn't dig a single lead bullet, and a single 3-ringer, single anything. And my buddy Ross ended up digging 22 bullets that day. But I dug, a couple of J hooks, a beautiful, completely intact New York coat, New York cuff. I dug that nice B. I dug a flying eagle. And just a lot of really camp-related items, just weird brass things you expect to find in a camp.
I didn't find too many bullets, maybe 3. Jeff didn't either, did you, Jeff?
I found 1 bullet, and I had to dig a trash pit to get it.
Yeah.
So, that's normally, I do pretty good with bullets out of DIV, but I just didn't swing my coil over any, and that's just sometimes you have that luck. So, but I did find 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, 40 was different. 40 was different than all of the other DIVs because it was split into 2 sites. So my thought, and like the guys I was with, was we would pick a site and we would commit to it until we found the relics. And so as opposed to going from site 1 to site 2 and then site 2 to site 1, you just didn't know what to do. So if you committed to a place, it wasn't worth it to go to another place to relearn where everybody's digging or where any of the relics may be.
You're right, Matt. It was all the other DIVs have mainly been on farms that have been hunted before. You got Beauregard, you got Brandy Rock. Some of the bigger dug-in farms, Coles Hill, they've been hunted several times, and the hunters that's been at DIV know where to go. On these 2 farms, really nobody had any idea where to go. So, it makes a lot of difference if the farm has been hunted before. And you look at Brandy Rock, you look at Coles Hill, like this last one, there was a lot of good bottles come out of that area. It was a great bottle. Yeah, it looked like a great bottle hunt.
Yeah, moving to Coles Hill, which is DIV 41, that's an exceptional place. You're talking about, dug in. You can still see the pictures of the huts. You can almost figure out the layout, except for where the bottles come from. You could dig a hole straight down and run into a trash pit at 4.5, 5 foot that was absolutely loaded or had a knapsack hook in it. Or you could find a trash pit that had a dozen bullets, bottles. You know, I watched Dennis dig a trash pit that had a bed warmer. I've never seen a bed warmer out of a Civil War camp, and he digs a whole bed warmer at 3 foot, which was a massive signal.
What are you talking about, a bed warmer?
So it was more common for period homes of that type. They basically had, it looked like a big donut. Basically it looked like a toilet seat, but you would put your ashes down into it, and it had a handle on it, and it was flat on the bottom, and you'd run it over your bed to get it warm before you got in it.
I've never seen one of those. Have you, Jeff?
Not in person. I've seen them in magazines.
I've never even seen one in a magazine. I had no clue that they did that.
I mean,
well, so they used them up to the 1920s. I mean, a lot of people would use them to like warm their beds. So,
right, and some of them were designed to go like either under the edge of your bed, but I guess this must have been a fancy Yankee officer that had one, and he wore it out from warming his bed up so much. But you know, so that was in there, and that ended up getting Dennis into the hole. So, you know, and that was an incredible pit. But if you see my video, Tommy Snellings, he finds a pit just by digging a test hole, and it ends up having one of the coolest pipes I've ever seen. A Ian Lewis Richmond Confederate eye button, a dozen Yankee buttons, and just all kinds of neat stuff.
Yeah, I saw that pipe. Man, that was it. It's got a figure of a man with a beard on it, doesn't it?
It does, and it's actually an effigy pipe of Winfield Scott.
You might go ahead and give out your YouTube channel there and y'all's group page on Facebook so that people after the show will be able to go and put it in the chat as well so people will know where to go to look at those things.
Yeah, so my YouTube page is Gone Diggin, GONEDIGGIN, and I also have a Facebook page that's associated, same name with that. But the Facebook page that I do a lot of stuff on is Virginia Diggers, and that's Bruce Adwell's page, and he's doing some really neat stuff over there. I don't know if you guys have bumped over there and checked it out, but like now,
I have. I mean, it's some real good stuff.
Yeah, that alphabet thing is really neat because it really makes you. You have to like right now he's on A, so any A letter like artillery or artifact. I've seen artifacts from Native American artifacts, but next week he'll go to B, and you'll have to do bottles or bayonets or buttons or whatever relic starts with that letter. So it's a really neat thing, and I've just seen some incredible stuff posted.
That's a good little game that he's got running there. I've seen that. And we've posted our video on the Virginia Diggin Facebook page, too. I'm looking forward to them getting to Z because I don't know what anybody's going to put on Z. I can't think of anything come to my mind.
I can't either.
You know, he did a quick run-through of it, and somebody posted a Z that I'd never seen. It was some sort of weird button that had a Z in it. I said, I don't even know what that is, but it was really neat.
We got a call.
I've never seen one.
We got a call that came in. Who we got on the line?
This is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you guys?
Oh, we're
listening to you
just
guys
fine. How are you, Matt? Well, we're trying to let Matt do all the talking, so.
I don't think these guys have an idea of what they're in for if I do that.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, going good there, Jamie. You got a question for Matt or one of us?
No, I was just calling in. You said I was listening to you guys talk and said you hope some of his little group will call in, so I figured to give you guys a shout.
Yeah. So how long you been hunting with Matt?
Matt and I have probably been, I would say, about 10 years now, something like that. We've been hunting together. Met each other in the fire department when we were both volunteering, and just kind of found out by accident that we both like metal detecting, and kind of just took off from there like a streak of lightning, actually.
Now, Jamie, you were in the conference room when we had our live show there in Virginia, weren't you?
I was, yes, sir.
Yeah,
yep.
I remember you now.
Yeah. I was quiet when I didn't get up and speak or anything, so I figured I'd step out of my comfort zone and call you guys tonight.
Well, we just a bunch of rednecks with metal detectors. They ain't nothing to be shy about, you know. And I know you, and I've seen you, and now that I know who you are, I'll tell everybody you fit right in the group because that's what you are too.
Well, I appreciate it. I definitely am a redneck.
I gave you a compliment right there, but if you'd been from the north, I would have insulted you, I guess. But you're not, so
likely.
Yeah, all is well.
Likely.
Hey, what'd you find
yes,
what'd you find that you went to both hunts as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah. For the hunt where you guys were at, I ended up with I think maybe about 6 New York buttons, 5 or 6, something like that. A couple eagles. I think maybe about eight bullets, J-hook, a large scent, I think a flat button. That was about the extent of it. Maybe a few little odd and end pieces. I can't remember honestly now, but that was it. For like everybody else, I think the first day was pretty tough. Second day was much better. Third day we kind of got back to the same area and tried it again and picked up a few things, but didn't set the world on fire, but you know, had a great time regardless.
It took us It took us a little while to get our footing on that hunt, and
absolutely.
I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
But you're
now,
part.
If we go back to that farm, we would do a lot better because we know where some stuff is at. So.
Yeah, I think so, and it's probably depends on vegetation and stuff like that too. We hunted hard in the real thick grass back there, at the New York camp, and and actually did pretty well. And it certainly made up for the first day for sure. First day was really tough on us. Like I said, I was like you guys were talking about. I was over in that thick stuff right there along with you, and it was. It didn't take me long to realize that wasn't where I wanted to stay. I can tell you.
It was hard hunting. It sure was. I know.
It was.
Yeah. Next time I need to take a tractor and bush hog, or maybe just a dozer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, either plow a ring around that thing and set it on fire might be the best way to go.
It sure would.
Hey guys, y'all hold on just a minute. We're coming up on a hard break, and we're going to do something on Tim Henderson here. If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Garrett, XP Deus, Tesoro, and Macro detectors and supplies, and he is now an authorized dealer for Mine Lab. So, if you're looking to get your hands on the new Equinox 600 or 800, then Tim is your guy. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any questions you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611, and be sure and tell him Relics Radio sent you. I tell you, Jamie, you're part of the reason I didn't find my New York button, because you got mine, I think.
Is that what it was? Well, we had a guy hunting with us, Ross, and that was his entire goal for that hunt, was to find himself that New York button. And I actually tried really hard to get him one. A few of my targets, I'd ask him to come over and listen to it, and he'd say, "That sounds good." And I said, "Well, dig it." And he'd say, "Nope, that's your target." And I said, "No, sir, it's not been done yet. That's just a signal, so you dig it." And as luck would have it, we never were able to get him one, but I think he still had a good time. So
that was my goal too. And me and Jeff, we moved a big tree trying to get one, didn't we, Jeff?
We sure did. It was probably about the size of a Volkswagen, and then, well, the boulder that we had to move the tree was the size of a Volkswagen. And then the tree itself was probably about 2 or 3 Volkswagens. So, but man, I was hoping Lloyd would find one for sure. I mean, and I'd got a good signal in the trench there, and then, of course, you could tell it was a button signal, and I mean, pretty much right on top of the ground. And I pulled it out, and then, of course, it was a general service. So, yeah, and that was the only button I'd found in that area. And I remember we were going through the trash pit, and then Lloyd, he'd got it popped out just digging in the ground and then in the trash pit, and then it was a good sized button, and then both of us just knew it was going to be a New York button, but it turned out to be general service. So,
yeah. Well, they're still fun to dig too. I know there's a lot of goals for a lot of people had goals for the New York buttons, and I think a fair amount of people found them. I was really hoping Ross would get his New York. It was, like I said, that was his big goal. But he certainly made up for it on the last hunt at Coles Hill. He walked away from there with 2 plates. Ross had never dug a plate in his life, and I didn't witness the first one because I was actually digging a pretty good sized hole myself at the time. He ended up with a U.S. box plate on the side of the hill over there, and then that was on the first morning, the first day, and on the evening of the last day, he ended up digging a U.S. plate, a belt buckle plate. It was turned over kind of in a U shape, but it was still pretty phenomenal, and he was tickled to death. And we got him. Matt was able to get both of them on video, so that was a memory he'll never forget now because he's got it on video.
Yeah,
man, that's great.
He salvaged himself, and I saw those on the video, and I was tickled to death that he got those. But Ross, I'm not going to be able to see Jamie for a while, so you can slap him for both of us for getting our New York buttons. Hey, Matt, Bruce did well too, didn't he? That hunted with y'all.
Yeah. So the first day, Bruce stumbled, especially on 40. He stumbled into that downslope on that New York hill, and he really did well. I mean, he had a pretty good case full of relics. Kind of same amount, much more the quantity than what we had, but definitely the lots of bullets, kind of the same kind of material, bullets, buttons. I don't know if he ended up picking up any. He did. There was a road that went right through the center of that. And he was walking right down the center of that road, and he dug a trime right out of the middle of that road.
Goodness gracious!
Right in the middle of the camp. And he said the only reason he swung right down the middle of the road is he said he didn't see any dig holes, and he said the trime wasn't more than 3 or 4 inches deep.
And every one of us walked over that. Why is it that you discount those places like that and think, I'm not going to dig in the road? There was a lot of New York buttons that came out of the road on the second day there. And along that edge of that rock wall that went down, there were several that came up from there. If we could have got on the other side of the rock wall, that was the main part of the camp, don't you think?
I think so, too. I know the other side where the other landowner was. There had to be if the relics just don't abruptly end for no reason, and I'm sure that other side held a lot of relics as well. But, if you don't have permission, you can't go. But I think the funny part is we all had preconceived notions of where stuff is, and nobody thought they would be in the road. And there, sure enough, there you go. You have relics sitting in the road. Why would there be a relic on the side of the road but not in the road? I don't know why we dig like that sometimes, but we certainly do.
And one of the best places, and Jeff will tell you this, one of the best places to dig is where you park your truck. And that was the case at DIV 40 because there was a guy hunted there and just cleaned up.
Oh, yeah, and done great. And I noticed a lot of, like, the farms around here close to the fence. I mean, a lot of people, they kind of stay out into the middle of the field, but in the along the fence lines are a good place.
You know, the fence lines, because nobody wants to get up close to them, but you know my favorite place to dig is up against a road. I love digging up against roads. I don't care if it's aluminum garbage that's been plowed in for beer cans, but especially where I live, you have a lot of guys that have a lot lower morals than what I do, and they'll go out and they'll hunt in the middle of the field in the middle of the night. But what they won't do is they won't go up against the roadway because the headlights will see them. So you get up against the edge of a roadway and you're going to dig some more trash, but some of the finest relics I've ever seen have come right out of the middle of that trash in the middle, right up against roadways.
And it's like you say, you know, you're going to dig some aluminum cans. You're going to dig some Coke cans and beer cans that people have thrown out over the years. I've got a buddy up in Ohio, and he had an old colonial house that he found and pretty well cleaned it out in, you know, off the road there. And he said, I just went to the side of the road, and he said, I dug probably 12 aluminum cans. And he said, I had another signal that I would have swore was an aluminum can, and it was a full 8 real Spanish silver. So, you know,
oh my gosh,
it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work sometimes digging that trash, but it pays off too. Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely. Jesse Rogers in there said, dig anywhere there ain't a hole and double check the holes. It's funny, at 41, I walked through an area that was just plastered with holes, and I dug signal after signal right out of it, right up against the side of holes. You know, somebody come in there and dig a piece of iron, and then they wouldn't double check it, or they wouldn't, you know, they would just go back and about it. Well, they just unmasked a great target. I dug a bullet of 15 inches right in somebody's hole.
Well,
you know, and
the New York button that Barb got, she got right in the middle of a bunch of holes where people had dug, and they passed it up. So you just never know. You know, you just got to go low and slow, and as people go in there, like you say, and clean the iron out. And I'm awful bad about whenever I dig a target, getting up and then moving forward. I have to kind of slap myself and tell myself, you know, back up and go back over the hole, because there's going to be a spot that you'll miss. And, you know, a lot of times you'll find 2 or 3 relics that have been dropped at the same time, maybe bullet or buttons or whatever, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and like at 40, Jamie will tell you that at 40, on the second day, me, Ross, and Jamie didn't hunt more than a 50 by 100 area. Jeff Ford and his sneakiness pops right onto the edge of it and digs 3 bullets out of their area we've been hunting, which was completely fine and cool. But, you know, we stayed all of their relics, probably between the 3 of us. We dug probably more than 100 relics that day out of that 100 by 50 area, and really quality stuff. But we just stayed there. If you're finding relics, why move on to something that you don't know that there's no relics, you know?
I've got a saying, don't leave relics to go find relics. And that is a true statement.
And we're all guilty of not doing that, probably.
We all do it. There's no doubt about it.
Yep, absolutely. Definitely do.
We're afraid that, you know, if we just move just a little ways, that there's going to be a cache of gold or something. I don't know.
That's right. It's the old grass is always greener on the other side, right?
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've done it 1,000 times.
The grass
relics to find relics.
The grass wasn't green on the back end of that New York camp, but it sure was tall, wasn't it, Matt?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I mean, you talk about hard, really have to hunt and listen to every single signal. You gotta, I mean, that's where those big coils really shined over there. You know, I'm a real big fan of coil selection. I think that coil selection is one of the most underestimated, underappreciated things in metal detecting. I see guys that go out with AT Pros or Tesoros or F75s, and all they hunt with is a massive coil, 15-inch Nell or whatever it is. And in this case, at 40, you really needed to have a big coil to mat that grass down. But, you know, the coil really made the difference, I think, at that hunt.
You was talking about Jeff Ford a while ago. Him and Wes Stringer came up and hunted with me and Jeff this past week. And that coil that Jeff hunts with, I think it's a 10 by 15, 10 by 16 Commander. I'm going to tell you something.
He has the 12 by 15
12 by
Commander
15.
coil.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is surgical with that thing. And if you ever watch him hunt, he is the slowest hunter I believe I've ever seen, but that pays off. I mean, he just barely moves. But when he goes through an area, there's no need for you to go back and hunt it because there's nothing left.
Well, my experience is the best DIV hunters, that's how they hunt. They don't move real fast. Now, they may move pretty quickly to find the relics, but once they find the relics, they will hunker down until they get what they're looking for.
Well, that's the way Jeff Ford does, ain't it, Jeff?
And it sure is. I mean, he found, 20 bullets? And, of course, I'd left this spot. I found 2 bullets, and then I had the 11-inch coil on, and then the Commander coil. And he come in right behind me and found 6. So, I mean, I just wasn't picking them up. And then he ended up finding a J-hook, and he did find a bullet in that area. So,
yeah, he cleaned up. He sure did. And I've got the same coil that Matt hunted with there, and I had it with me, and I don't know why in the world I didn't. But I'll tell you what, I took my 10 by 5 and that I had bought just previous to going to DIV 40, and I really did better with it in those high trash areas than I did with anything that I used during the whole hunt.
Well, and I think that's the other part of the coil selection part is that, so I have an 18-inch head coil. I have the 15 by 12 like you had the open butterfly. I have the stock coil, and then I have a 5 by 10. And if I take that 18-inch head into those high trash places, you're just going to blank out everything, you know, and it doesn't make any sense. But that's where the coil selection, and Jamie will tell you when we went to the last rat tree hunt, he hunted with 11-inch head on his, and he got a low tone, big long low tone, and we ended up running into a hut at about 2.5 foot with a ration can. But because that coil was the right size to pick that target out between that iron and still get the depth he needed, it's what got us into that hut. And the same thing with that 10 by 5. I think that's a super deep coil that many people don't really underestimate.
Well, I'll tell you what Keith told me at Fort Bedford, and that's where I got it. Heath Jones called him. He had one in stock, and actually Tony with Fort Bedford met me at the pre-hunt meeting, and I got that coil from him. But anyway, he told me that a guy had dug a plate at 27 inches, a breastplate at 27 inches with that coil. So it's got some depth, you know, not like the great big coils, but like you say, you can't get in a place that's full of square nails and everything and use that big coil because it's going to blank everything out.
Mm-hmm. And that goes for anybody who's listening for a VLF machine. I mean, you put too many targets under, whether it's a pulse machine or a VLF machine, you put too many targets under the coil, you're going to be missing stuff, you know? So that's why, like, you know, some of the people laugh at the metal detectors that I dig with, and then they ask, well, what else do you have to go with it? And I have just about every coil you can get to go with all of them.
Yep.
Because coil selection is so important.
I think so, too. And, you know, this is a question that I asked everybody that uses a GPX. What settings do you use on yours? Like, what did you run your gain on?
So I run my gain as high as I can, but what I have to do is it has to be stable. So if it's not stable, I'll back my gain all the way down to 6, 7, whatever. I mean, even Jamie may tell you at 41, there's a big power line that runs right across the top of Coles Hill, and you just can't put any gain on it. Some guys will try to run their gain at 12 or 13, but it just can't be done.
I think at some point we were down to almost 3 at Coles Hill.
And you can run in cancel. I learned that. You can put it in cancel instead of the, I think it's on the double D or mono or cancel. And you can put it down in cancel. And Jeff and I have hunted a spot that's got some, it's actually got a big cell tower there that it'll drive a machine crazy, won't it, Jeff?
It sure will. Do you guys ever run yours in cancel?
I have personally never done that.
I steer away from cancel as much as possible. I'd rather run my gain down lower than run in cancel. I'll run in cancel and then turn my gain back up, because cancel is a last resort for me, because cancel really will knock out a lot of depth.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I put mine in cancel, I'll run my gain as high as I can go then, you know, because you're trying to compensate for that. But
right, that makes sense.
You have to have that machine stable in order to hear those little whisper signals. I mean, you have to.
Yeah, you know, the last good target I dug that was a whisper. You know, me and Jamie actually went out this spring together, and I heard this little bitty whisper of a target, and it ended up being what was that? A dire shell at almost 4 feet.
Yeah. It was incredible depth on that one.
But it's got to be perfect. To get that kind of depth, you have to have the perfect threshold, because any break that's repeatable on threshold is a diggable target.
Yep, sure is. We got another call in. Got Woody Jones on. What's going on, Woody?
Hey, Lori, Jeff.
Hello, Woody.
Good, guys. Hey, Matt, I subscribed to your channel, too, and I got a question about the video 2 weeks ago when you pulled that bayonet out of the ground. Did your heart stop as bad as mine did?
It was pretty epic feeling. You know, I love that video. I can only imagine a soldier sticking that bayonet right in the side of that trench line and reloading.
Yeah,
man. If you like that video, you gotta hold on to your seat for the next one.
Okay, yeah, because that one gave me cold chills when you pulled it out. I mean, that was awesome. That was incredible.
Now that's a good teaser for the next video, isn't it?
It sure is.
So, what he's talking about is I have an old site that I hunt with the GPX, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. I had some old guys tell me about this place, and they said, you know, just ain't nothing left there. But we think that, we know that there was a trench line that went through this field. Well, I got permission to go over there, and the lady's super nice, and she said, yeah, just go on out there and have a good time. So I went, and I started looking for this trench line. Jamie's been over there with me, and Sure enough, I found it. And there's a video before that of my buddy Ricky, who digs with us at DIVs, digging his first bayonet. And when he dug his, I was happy for him. I was absolutely ecstatic. I'm not one to get jealous over finds. I was like, man, that'd be cool to find a bayonet. Man, he digs a beautiful one. And the next video that Woody's talking about is that bayonet, and it's just vertical. It was just a good, smooth, low tone, and just absolutely really neat piece of history to pull out of your hand. It was like, I think I said it in the video, I felt like King Arthur pulling the sword from the stone.
Yes, you did. Yes, sir. Yeah, and I mean that was just. I mean, like I say, my heart was fluttering because I was like, "Oh my Lord, this man has found the ultimate find almost." I mean, something like that, and it was. It wasn't really broken or nothing tipped off or anything. I mean, it was. No, and it was awesome.
I'll tell you what. I'll share it on my Gone Digging Facebook page. I got it back. I have a friend who does electrolysis, and he does it.
That's what I was going to ask you as well. Yeah.
And so what it is, it's a Confederate bayonet.
Lord!
It's only shown in Howard Crouch's book one time, and when Crouch wrote the book, he didn't know what the bayonet was or where it was made.
Oh my!
Hey guys,
that is fantastic.
It's really neat.
Hang on to that thought.
That is fantastic.
We've got another hard break coming up, and we will be right back. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcombe are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671 and be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And by the way, I mentioned it earlier in the show, but we're waiting on a call from Heath and Butch, an update on the bone hunt up in New Hampshire. So if you guys are listening, whenever you get a chance, well, I know it's off subject from what we're talking about, but we're talking about metal detecting, so it doesn't matter. Give us a call and give us an update.
So I've been working through a few things, and maybe you guys and the folks listening out there could give me some insight. I'm thinking about producing a metal detecting expo. Have you guys ever heard of anything like that?
No. What do you got in mind?
Yeah. I'm thinking like like if you go to a trade show of whether it would be of colleges or firearms or like say a sports trade show, like where like a outdoors trade show where you had bass fishing and hunting and all that stuff, where you had booths and people selling stuff and displaying stuff. I've been kind of toying this idea around for a while, and I just didn't know if you guys thought that would be something that maybe somebody like you guys would like to go and do a show at, like say a Spreaker podcast.
Yeah, we'd be up for that.
Like major,
we sure would.
Major metal detecting manufacturers, guys selling relics, folks like you, maybe even like huge internet stars like Jeff Ford. I say that with all due sincerity. But, like something, there's not anything big out there that has the whole metal detecting world kind of encompassed in a trade show. And I just didn't know if that would be anything anybody would be interested in.
Well, shop your idea around, American Digger magazine and all of the major dealers. That would be a good opportunity for them. And I guess you're talking about doing that in Virginia, aren't you?
Yes, Virginia, or it could be anywhere that would be central to that sort of thing. But it's I don't know. It's something I've talked to Jeff about a little bit, and I didn't know if anybody else had any ideas about something like that. Something to kind of bring the metal detecting community together.
Well, now me and Jeff would come. The only thing is that we'd have to have a day to hunt, before the show and everything.
I was just getting ready to tell you guys, you may be able to talk him into that if you guys come up.
That's what we're talking about.
A day before the show and a day after.
There you go.
The day after,
and maybe a little bit the day of.
The day of.
Yeah, the day of. We can cut our show down to 30 minutes if we have to.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet we could probably come up with a spot to carry everybody. So.
Yeah, I don't think
and
that.
I bet Plugmaster Ford would ride up there with us, Lori.
I'd say he would. Him and Missouri Mac and Wes Stringer and Chris Hamsoff. We bring a whole big crew from Missouri and Arkansas and Kentucky and Tennessee. There's a lot of guys.
Yeah, we can bring a lot of rednecks.
Yeah.
So, but
is Woody still on the line?
No, Woody got off.
I got you.
Good call, Woody. Appreciate you calling in.
Good call.
Yeah, I was gonna tell him a little funny story about today. Matt's in the process of moving, so I was helping him move today, and he trusted me with that bayonet to carry it in my truck to his new house. And we've moved all the boxes out of the truck and everything, and I thought they had gotten everything out of my truck. And right at the end, we were getting ready to leave, and Matt looks at my truck and he says, "You planning on keeping that?"
Well, should I give you my address?
Yeah, I know where that bayonet.
That was an honest mistake. Mistake. I swear I thought somebody had gotten it.
Yeah, I know where that bayonet would be. It'd be in my display case. I hadn't found one yet. But I watched that video, and you guys, that thing is sticking straight up and down. It's vertical. And I'm saying, pull it out, and y'all are still digging around it and everything. Of course, I know you don't want to break it, but the anticipation of getting that thing out to see if it was complete, it was killing me.
When you're digging a relic like that's like vertical, or it takes you a while to excavate that relic, that is one precious moment. I've dug a couple of gun tools that, was brittle because of all the rust, and you just have to take your time. And that right there is a precious moment when you're digging this relic that hadn't been touched by human hands in 150, 60 years or whatever. And that is a great moment.
It was a great find. There's no doubt about it. Hey, tell us.
Even better when you get it on video.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
I found my breastplate, and I could see it down in the hole, and I was pretty sure that I had some kind of plate. So I filmed it before I ever did anything, and then I dug just a little bit, and then I filmed again, and I kind of drug it out a little bit. But Jeff's right, Hey, there's one thing that me and Jeff are interested in that we haven't done a whole lot, and that's digging huts or pits or what have you, so that we could get into some bottles. That's one thing that we really want to do at a DIV or any of these old house sites. How do you guys, do you ever use a probe, or do you just go for the barrel bands or just the deep iron? How do you do it?
Personally, to me, it all depends on your situation and where you're at. We've probed for them, especially Bruce is a big privy digger. He's dug a pile of them in the city of Richmond, and we're talking holes that are 20, 25 foot deep.
Right.
And it's spectacular. And what he's a master with the probe. He's much better than I am. What I generally find that is, aside from an artillery shell, why would you find a deep piece of iron at 2 or 3 foot in the ground? And that has always led me into some sort of either trash pit or hut, depending on the situation. If you're in a camp or if you're, you're hunting around, say, a colonial period house site. In fact, me and Jamie got the privilege to get an invite to go down to a really old section of Virginia, and actually had one of the very first post-Jamestown settlements in this area. And we were able to get into a pit, and what got us there was a very large piece of iron at about 2.5 foot. Well, you start opening that hole up, and you say, why is this piece of iron so far below the plow line? And sure enough, I think what we figured out we were in was some sort of cellar hole, basically. So that's my experience. I'm not that great with a probe. Now, I've seen guys at DIV, especially 41. I think Doug Harris went up and probed. He probed 2 pits. One pit had 11 bottles. The other one had 6 in it.
Wow.
Yeah, he didn't even carry a metal detector with him.
Well, he's good at it. Then,
yeah, I know him, and I've hunted with him, and actually I've tried to. He was trying to teach me the probing technique, how to find some, and he said just probe around quite a bit, and he said as soon as you feel a change in the ground, he said start digging, and you have to dig a lot of test holes, and I mean it's rough, and you may luck up that first test hole and run into a bunch of bottles, but I mean it's well worth the work if you can find a pit full of bottles.
Now, who did you say was probing with y'all? Was that Bruce?
Bruce didn't probe on that on 41. Bruce actually ended up finding his really incredible pit with a very weird piece of brass that was about 2.5 foot in the ground. So my experience in Civil War camps is it's best to dig the deep iron. The deeper the iron, the better off you're going to be. I think who was it? Jesse Rogers asked if I hunt with a Deus, and I do. I don't just hunt with a GPX. I hunt with a Deus and a MindLab CTX 3030. But with the Deus, people complain that they dig a lot of iron. And, I had somebody tell me that they dug a piece of, I can't remember a barrel band at like 2.5, almost 3 foot. And I said, well, what'd you do with it? They said, well, I just covered the hole up, put the barrel band in my pocket, and left. And I said, well, why didn't you dig the rest of that trash pit out? He said, I wasn't in a trash pit. I said, well, why was a barrel band at 3 foot in the ground? He looked at me, and it was like a light bulb turned on. He's like, well, I guess I got to go back and dig that out. So I think Jamie has the similar experience recently with a deep piece of iron.
Yeah, actually, it was my daughter's boyfriend that had a deep iron signal, and he dug down a little bit. He's hunting about 15 feet away from me, and he dug down and started getting into some brick. And he called me over, and he says, what do you think about this? And I said, I think we better keep digging. So we ended up in, I'm not even sure what kind of building, or it was brick lined. It was 6x6. We found a lot of pieces of iron in there, very few pieces of plates and glass, a few flat buttons, and never anything spectacular. But it was pretty neat to dig it out and just find all sides of it and go all the way down to hard packed ground. You knew you were at the bottom of it, so there was zero chance of anything else being in there. We got it all, So, but it was a good experience.
And it's like y'all said, there's a reason why that iron is that deep. You know, they didn't plow that into the ground. It was, at one time, it was a hole. It was a pit or a hut or something.
Yeah.
I know today I took the Equinox 600 out for its maiden voyage. I got it in today, and I took it out for a little bit, and, of course, done real well with it. And I run into a spot that Loy and I had hunted before, and I got a signal, and I dug down and found a big piece of iron. And, of course, this is below plow line, and it started running into brick and some more bone. And I'll mark the spot where we can dig out probably this weekend, so we'll see what we find.
Yeah, keep us posted on that. It might lead us to the glass you were trying to get to.
Yeah, and you don't have to have a Civil War site to find glass. I mean, you can find a privy or a trash pit around any of these old colonial houses, and you're going to find some good stuff in there, because I've said it before, and I believe that if you drop something fairly valuable even back then in the privy, you're not going to go in there and go through it.
No, I'm pretty sure I would.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, and I've also heard stories of people actually hiding valuable stuff because they knew people wouldn't go out and get it in the privy. That's kind of some of the folklore around Richmond, and you'd go and hide your valuables underneath the seat of your privy, because especially if you lived in a Civil War area and you worried about troops coming through and taking the stuff out of your house. So there's some good stuff to be found in them for sure.
Nick Haas said he might dig it if it was a gold coin. I might, but I'm a little apprehensive about digging a privy even 150 years later.
I'll get right in there. Of course, yeah. The booty down in there is worth finding. There's going to be some good treasures in there.
Absolutely.
If it was from 1970s now, I probably wouldn't dig that privy, but.
Well, I know exactly where I know exactly where one's at that was active in the 40s. In fact, we had that privy on up until about 1977. So I know exactly where it's at. I don't know if we dropped anything in it or not. Well, we dropped some stuff in it, but it might not be what you want.
Well, Seven, I'll let you dig the first 5 foot, and then I'll go from there.
It sounds like a plan there for you
guys. We were talking about settings a while ago, and you talked about gain and everything. Do you run yours in special, or do you run it in enhanced or normal?
Ooh, you're asking me questions I had to look at the machine for.
Special. I think we run it in.
Yeah, special. But what I've been learning is that I've been hunting in normal and good ground, because I'm not sure if you guys know Ron Rigney. He's a DIV guy, and he is a absolute whiz with the GPX. But he hunts some old camps, and he's telling me that normal and good ground will get you even more depth, which is silly to think about when you can dig a bayonet at 3 foot.
Yeah, I know.
On special. So,
well, the reason that I asked is because I'm fairly new to GPX. Had mine less than a year now, but I've been trying different settings and everything to. I get a signal, and rather than just dig the signal, I tinker with my settings a little bit to see if it was different or what have you. And I'm getting my strongest signals on special. I understand that normal is for normal ground, but I'm getting in the ground that I'm digging, which I think is fairly neutral ground here in Kentucky. I'm getting my best signal on special, and on enhanced, I don't even hear some of those signals. So That's the reason that I asked, what you were using. Now, I use special at there in Virginia at the DIV that we hunted.
Yeah, I don't ever move into enhanced. I'm moving in between normal and special. You know what I really want to have a good grasp on the difference between an iron break and an overload. Some of the guys that I follow online talk about if you can learn the difference between an iron break and an overload, you will be a master at the GPX. But I find that sometimes the deep really overloads stuff that shouldn't quite overload. I don't know. It's a weird thing when you talk about settings, because like so many machines I use and so many people I talk to, there's only a good setting for what you're comfortable with and how you understand the machine to perform. I guess if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
It makes perfectly. Yeah, it sure does. And I know, like Loy and I, of course, we would run our settings down, our game down to like even 5. And of course, it seemed like we were picking up more targets with the gain at 5. And maybe that's what we were doing, is when we would go over our target, it would overload and we would think it was breaking. So.
Right. And that's a big part with the GPX, is learning that difference between the overload and the break. And sometimes I think if you turn that gain up so high, you're going to overload it and you're going to think it's a break if you just back it down to a reasonable level that you're going to get good solid signals out of.
And I tell you something that I learned at DIV 40, that a guy named Troy Cooper and his son Austin, we hunted with them a little bit, and they were on our DIV 40 video. But he told me, he said, turn that iron reject down, because I had mine on 10. He said, because these bullets are blanking, because they just don't have, they just weren't real deep bullets. And he said, turn it down. You'll dig a little bit more trash, but you'll also hear those bullets. And so, you can pump too much power into the ground with any machine. And we always think, well, we want the gain or we want the sensitivity all the way up. You don't always want that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you start edging into power lines, or you move into my best example, my favorite place to hunt, and like you guys, is to hunt home sites. So you start moving to an area, I like to think of an old colonial home site in a field and how it's been spread around by a plow. You end up with basically rings of material, whether it's iron or brass, that gets denser and denser as you move to exactly where the house used to sit. And as you move deeper into that iron and those other targets, you've really got to adjust your sensitivity or your gain or whatever machine you're using to slowly be able to pick through that stuff. And if you're not constantly adjusting your machine for your ground settings, you're just going to miss it.
And that, I know we're talking about GPX, and we probably got some listeners on that don't even own a GPX. And, they say, well, this doesn't apply to me. Well, it does, really, because a case and point on this is that they removed the floor from an old house and was reflooring it, and told me, said, we've got all the boards out, and all that is there is just the, just the main boards, that framework of the floor. And there were some, I was hunting with my AT Pro, and I had my sensitivity turned all the way up, and I actually saw an Indian head laying on top of the ground. I mean, it wasn't even buried. Run my coil over it and got nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I turned my sensitivity down to about half, and I got it. And what it was doing was it was blanking on an AT Pro, and nobody would have ever been able to convince me of that. But that's the truth. That's what happened.
Yeah, and I think what you end up with in those situations is the machine is pushing so much power into the ground that it's feeding off of every single piece of iron or brass, wherever it is. And if you're not adjusting your sensitivity or your transmit power or whatever it is, whatever machine you're using, if you're not adjusting it down so you can hear those shallow targets, so you can clear those out, so you can get to the deeper targets, you're not going to find it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I love hunting old house sites 3, 4, 5 times. And my favorite house sites are the house sites people tell me I've hunted a dozen times, because I know I can go in there and find more stuff that they miss because they're not adjusting their machine as they should.
Yeah, and Chris Hamsoff said that's crazy. I wouldn't have thought that the AT Pro would have blanked, but and that's the only word that I know to use, because it happened to me on 2 different signals. There were 2 Indian heads that were laying just flat on the ground, and I dug a few silvers and things like that were a couple of inches down, and they weren't that bad. But if you found anything laying right on top of the ground with sensitivity turned all the way up, the AT Pro didn't hear it. And you're just, when you're pumping that much power into the ground, whatever machine that you've got, if you got the sensitivity or your gain all the way up, you're actually getting a ground echo that's coming back, and it's just trying to process too much, you know.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Matt, did you say anything about the Facebook page for the GPXs? I know it's turn this into a GPX show, but I don't know if you had told them about that page.
So I also created a Facebook page. It's MindLab GPX users. It's a great page. I just did it to kind of facilitate, because I didn't find that many folks out there, or there wasn't a big group of MindLab guys with just GPXs, you know. It's an expensive machine. It's pretty specialized, but, you know, it's a great resource. I don't know if you guys are on it or not.
I don't believe I am. That's the first I've heard of it.
I am.
And then I had a question. I've had a question for Matt. How hard is it to get permission up there where you're from?
So, a lot of people ask me about permissions, especially. I work part-time for Cold Harbor Metal Detectors, so I fill in for Jerry. He's a great guy. And I have guys come in and say, you just can't get permission anymore. Well, I call a little nonsense on that. What I've learned is that, so where I live in Virginia it's battleground central. And, you know, in 1864, there were 100,000 Confederates and Yankees fighting all throughout my county I live in. And for that reason, lots of guys with metal detectors knock on every single door in the world here.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so if you think about door-to-door salesmen come knock up on your house, Jeff, how do you receive those folks? You may receive them politely and nice, but you're going to turn them away. And why is that? That's because you don't have any personal connection to them. I find that the best permissions that I get are through people that I network with. If you can learn how to network, you can open any door you want anywhere in the metal detecting world.
Well, in our day and time, people are apprehensive about, you know, whenever I was young, we'd pick up hitchhikers. You just don't do that anymore. And if you don't know someone, if you don't have a connection with someone, it's a lot easier and probably safer for you to say no. But if you know someone that can go with you or talk to them or kind of break the ice for you, that network will get larger and larger, won't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, so so my mom's a real estate agent. That's a great example. I popped into her office she was in. She was upstairs working, and I stopped in and talked to somebody downstairs, and he looked at me and he said, you like to do all that metal detecting stuff, don't you? I said, yeah. I said, I love it. I'm respectful of the land. I take care of the people who own the place. He said, well, you know what? I got 160 acres I think you get on. He said, would you go out and dig it? I said, I don't care where it's at. 160 acres is a fantastic amount of land. Who knows what could be there? He said, okay, well, I'll talk to my clients I'm selling to. Well, it turns out that if you can work on one permission, so not only did I meet one person who's willing to give me 160 acres to metal detect on, when I meet the landowners, if they're nice and I can connect something to them, more than likely I'll be able to connect another piece of property using them, and I won't say using, but it kind of is. Once I meet them, maybe they'll have somebody else that they know who has land. And if you can pull that together, you can end up with endless permissions.
Hey, Jeff, tell them what happened to us whenever Wes and Jeff Ford came up hunting.
This was a great story. I mean, okay, we were sitting there. We went back to the vehicle and was eating lunch. And then all of a sudden this guy pulls up, and then the landowner that owned the farm we were on, I'd never met him in person. I've talked to him on the phone, and I knew he owned the land. He said, yeah, you can hunt, blah, blah, blah. Okay, this guy pulls up, and then, of course, I asked him, I said, well, are you such and such? And he said, no. He said, I'm just a neighbor down here. And then I was like, okay. And then, of course, we shook hands, and we got to talking and everything. He said, yeah, the old road used to run by my house, blah, blah, blah. And there used to be an old, there's an old cemetery down there and an old church. And then he said, if y'all want to, y'all can go down there and hunt anytime you want to. He said, y'all can go right now if you want to. And then that's when, I mean, we split up, but that's another story. But anyway, you do not find that anywhere, I mean, that I've heard of. I mean, another landowner coming up and saying, hey, there's my property right there. You can hunt it if you want to. And here where I live now, there's a lot of that. I mean, once one neighbor gets to know you, then, I mean, the neighbors talk, and then they find out you're a good person. You treat the land like it's yours, and then you can go anytime you want to. So,
and one thing,
yeah, that was
one thing that I do is, of course, I'm well known in my county. It's a small county, but I do a lot for the Historical Society and put a lot of stuff in the museum. So a lot of people know me that way. But also, I go to every school in our county once a year and do a Civil War history clip, or, a history presentation on what Civil War activity was in our area. And you would not believe the connections that I've made there, because teachers and students and just any and everybody will open up a door for you to go hunting somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that people don't realize, is that you have to make something personal for some. So if I have a personal connection, it's very difficult to tell me no, because I feel like we know each other, and most people are going to go. I've had people say, I don't really let people do that, but I'll let you go this time. And you're like, you don't let anybody else? No, I don't let anybody do it. But you'll be all right. Have fun. And what that's ended up is being open-end permissions that you can come and go as you please. You can take care of the people, and I like to make somebody a little case and, stuff like that. Somebody said, bring the landowner a pie. We used to know a lady who loved chocolate shoe fly pies. And we take that lady a pie every so often, and oh my gosh, you could have built you a new house out in the middle of her field if she wanted.
That's right, buddy. And I mean, it was every permission I have, almost every permission I have for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I'll get them a ham, or I'll get them something as a gift. And there's a one of my main colonial sites. One of mine and Lloyd's main colonial sites. I met these people. They moved up from Tallahassee up here to a plantation home that was sitting empty, and then they decided to move in it. And I stopped by one day and asked them about metal detecting. And then, of course, they was like, well, I don't know. And then, of course, so happened the next weekend I met them at a historical society dinner that we had. And then they was like, hey, Jeff, how are you doing? And then after that, they were like, well, yeah, you can come out there metal detecting. And then, of course, that's I invited Lloyd, and they was like, yeah, that's fine. And then, of course, we've got a good friend of ours, Will Johnson, out of California. He's coming in this weekend for a hunt, and they was like, well, yeah, you can bring him. That'll be fine. That sounds good. I mean, here's the key to the house, blah, blah, blah. If you have anything you need to do, you can go in the house. I mean, that's just the way you make friends. And, of course, from here on out, they'll be a family friend for life. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the connections between a silly, I mean, it's interesting. Most of the guys I work with are like, man, that's silly, but they're probably half the people that subscribe to my channel, you know? but you make these connections with folks, and you're right, they do become almost like family. Me and Jamie had a fantastic couple that let us dig on their property whenever we want. We'd come in, we'd say hi to them, and we couldn't say hi to them. We had to sit and drink a cup of coffee and eat a bagel, or you know. I mean, it was an hour of hanging out and talking to them.
Yeah, we had to plan our hunts to start about 2 hours after we actually got there, because we knew we were going to talk that long. But you know, like you guys, we put in the time for it, and it was enjoyable. I mean, they enjoyed us being there, and their property was pretty incredible, and they were super smart people. Would explain about the property, what they knew about history and things like that. And, you know, we both gained on it for sure. You know, it was pretty rewarding just talking to them.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you
tell them about the infantry camp every time we have to go to the infantry camp.
if the landowner is home and he comes down, you've got an hour to talk, and but that's good. You know, I mean, you're making a personal connection with it. And you can do that. And, you know, I've asked certain people, you know, that I don't know that there's anything on their land. And I've got one guy that has given me permission, and me and Jeff never have scouted. I hear that there was a picket post on the place, but we've never scouted it yet. But anyway, I had asked him, and he said, well, I've had a few people asked, and I've told them all no, and just kind of left it at that. And one day I was coming home, and his farm is, it's probably 500 yards from my house. He was on the side of the road with a flat, and I just pulled off in front of him and got out, and I said, looks like you need a little bit of help. He's an older gentleman, and so I changed the tire for him, and he said, you know, you asked about hunting on my land, and he said, I'm going to give you exclusive permission. If anybody asked, you're the only person that I'm going to let. And I said, well, I've got a hunting partner. He said, I'll let you have one guy, but that's it. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And you know, I'll hold to it. We just haven't done it yet. But sometimes just a kind deed that you do will give you a personal connection there that will open the door that otherwise would remain closed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But on the other side of it, on our Civil War camp, there's another side to it, isn't there, Jeff, that is, I know it's full of relics. And I went down there and talked to that guy and his wife, and I sat down there and showed them that I'd GPS marked all the bullets and everything was in the museum. And I said, you know, but if I find something on you and you want to keep it, that's fine with me. I just want to document the camp, document the finds, and then, you know, it's up to you what we do with them after that. Yeah. And we talked for an hour and a half and got down to the end of it. And I said, well, the purpose of this is that I wanted to get permission to hunt there, and he said, no, we're not going to let you. And they were just as friendly, during the whole thing. But sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah. See, that's when you like, well, $50 a weekend, maybe help, or $100 a weekend. I mean, you get into a situation like that. I mean, that's where you kind of. I mean, if it's going to be a good spot, so you pay $250 to go to Virginia.
Yeah.
So why not pay $50 or $100 here? So I mean, that's where we're going. That's
a possibility. It's a possibility that you could do that. But come to find out, the landowner that I do have permission on, him and this guy had some trouble, had some words and everything. And I think it's more that he doesn't like him. I mean, he doesn't have anything against me, but I think it's just kind of a thing, between those two landowners that, well, if he's letting him, I'm not going to let him because, I don't like him. But that's, I got a brother-in-law that's got a saying that's pretty true. People are stranger than anybody.
You got a lot of good sayings.
That's a pretty good one.
You got a lot of good T-shirt sayings.
Well, it happens.
Ken said, should have baked him a pie, Seven.
Well, that would have closed the door for sure for me because I'm not a cook.
Stick with a store-bought one.
Yeah, I might get him a store-bought one or something. I got a message from Heath Jones, and he said he'd lost track of time, didn't know what time that we came on. I sent him a message back about 30 minutes ago. I said, we're on for them to call, but I don't know if they're listening tonight or not. But I was kind of hoping that they would call and give us an update on the bone hunt. They may be waiting to do that on American Digger Relic Roundup on Monday. I don't know. They want an exclusive.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, they want an exclusive.
Yeah, Wide Pride's probably asleep by now. So.
Yeah, probably so. That's what, and we didn't give them that name. They gave themselves that name, Heath Jones and Butch Holcombe. They call themselves Wide Pride. And Tuesday night I did Heath's show for him, and I said to Scott Duncan, I said, well, Wide Pride is in the air. And they said they had to sit on each side of the plane because Butch said if they both sat on the same side of the plane, all it would have done was just circle Atlanta, all night.
Oh, God.
But they're great guys.
Jeff Ford said it's going to be an early morning, got to go to sleep. So
I know where
have a good night, Jeff.
Well, Jeff's a lot older than he looks.
No, he's not either. I know where those guys are going in the morning. Jeff and Wes, and I think Chris Heimsoff's going with them. And you guys get some good pictures now, and we'll try to get together sometime this next week and do some talking. I'm actually doing an article for American Digger magazine on the great silver hoard that those guys have found in Missouri. And it's going to be a great story because it is a once-in-a-lifetime deal that they've got into there. Finding
that is absolutely epic stuff. I mean, that's the stuff that, aside from being a California can of gold coins, I mean, that's stuff dreams are made of,
That's what we all got in this hobby for.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a modern silver guy. I know Jeff's is a great coin shooter, and that's I like finding silver coins. I have a great time doing it. But man, to find that quantity of coins is just absolutely incredible.
You guys are like me in Tennessee, Jeff. I used to hunt yards, and I used to hunt schools and churches and things like that, and was interested in silver coins. And I won't turn one down, but that's really not my cup of tea. It either has to be a colonial house or a Civil War camp, for me to be at home on a place like that. I mean, that's the kind of places that we like to hunt. I want to get the oldest history that I can and leave that more modern history, that's 75 years old to the next generation of hunters because, they're going to need something to hunt. We got these GPXs. We're pulling everything out of the ground.
Yeah, that's like funny. A lot of. We had a lot of World War II maneuvers around here, and actually, my house is sitting on where they camped at. And I mean, there's tons of not general service, but Great Seal buttons and the old. They were blank cartridges, is what they were. I mean, you can find them anywhere out here, and of course, I'm going to try to save that for like my son Avery. Of course, he's 8 months, and then for the younger generation. So,
see, and it's funny because I commented on one of your videos about I can't believe you guys left that house site, but what I didn't realize is you guys live in a completely different area than we do. I hunt any house site from 1910 to 1700. It doesn't matter to me because I know that at some point in time there was a Confederate boy that had a uniform in that yard. And that's what it's probably, I would say, an honest 80% of my Confederate buttons I found have come out of those kind of house sites.
Yeah.
Where you dig garbage. Like, when I say garbage, I talk about aluminum and foil and pull tabs.
And I'm sure that there's something at that house. The house he's talking about, Jeff, was the one that we went to on the river down there that they said that steamboat captains were on.
Steamboat, yeah.
But that house,
and of course,
it wasn't that old, was it?
No, it wasn't. But, I mean, around this area, we've learned most of your good colonial sites are not going to be on a map or anything. You just kind of stumble across them. But a lot of people have lived in that house through the years, and there's going to be so much trash in that yard that it's going to take you a while to get down to the good. So,
I do understand that.
And all we had to do, Matt, all we had to do was walk 100 yards the other way. We found a spring, we found a hill, and we found a colonial site. We do not have, in my county, we do not have a map older than 1929. Now, some of those 29 houses will have a colonial site under them, and they won't have a lot of modern trash like cans and things like that. And I don't mind hunting those. But,
you
know, all we got to do is look for a spring or look for a knoll or something that is close to real good fresh water. And there's a real good possibility that we've got a colonial site there. So once we exhaust all of them, we'll have to go to those sites. But
yeah, we will.
Anybody with a metal detector can go to that house because they can see it and they know it. There's nobody ever been to the site that me and Jeff just hunted. Nobody. It's never been detected, and that's what we like.
Right, and that makes 100% sense to me, and it took me, and I live in the place where you open everybody's door, and everybody standing there with a metal detector. So I was like, well, that makes sense, especially for these guys who hunt colonial stuff, to go and say, we're going to steer away from this house site, and we're going to move towards this where we know nobody ever thought about, because there's nothing obvious about it. And I think that's another great way to get a marginal permission and look for these places that nobody else would ever want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to do that.
And you know, I never have found a walking liberty, a standing liberty, anything like that. Now my older coins. Now I found a handful in the 1700s and early 1800s, but as like standing, walking, barbers, I don't find any of them because I don't hunt them home sites. Now, after watching Jeff and Wes, I'm kind of like, well, maybe we should knock on this door or maybe this door, but I mean, we just love the colonial stuff. And I didn't really get into hunting the colonial sites until Seven and I started hunting. I mean, there was several places that I was just looking for Civil War sites and Civil War camps, and I would just walk over there. Of course, it'd be too trashy. I'd be like, no, I'm going to skip this because it's so trashy. And then I would come back, and after Seven and I started hunting, colonial sites, I'd be like, hey, I remember this trashy spot down here. Maybe it's a colonial site. And some of them turned out to be good, and some of them turned out to be bad. But, I mean, that's just, I mean, hunting with 7, I've just got in more or less colonial sites. I mean, the older the history, the better.
And I accidentally got into it because I found a knoll one time, and it was close to my house here, and I got on it and started finding flat buttons. I actually found a cut real there, and so I began to notice what the terrain looked like, and I started looking for places like that because it's not on any map. And I started getting around. We have the Cumberland River run through here, and that was the main thoroughfare through our county, you know, back in the late 1700s when the early settlers were coming in here and getting the land grants from the Revolutionary War. So I've kind of built a knack for looking at the terrain, and I can kind of tell where those sites are going to be. You know, I think it's a gift that you have just through experience and everything, but I have a knack for finding those, and, you know, but we do a lot of walking where we don't find anything too, don't we, Jeff?
We sure do. A lot of walking. I mean, it's like the farm I was talking about earlier where the landowner met them at a historical society dinner and everything. Of course, we found what it was a well that was had cut rock in the spring house. And, of course, Lloyd, I took him there. And, of course, the grass, it hadn't been bush hogged in years. And then, of course, Lloyd was like, man, that looks like, I think the house would be right up there. And then, of course, sure enough, well, here the landowner comes with the bush hog and then started bush hogging. And then, sure enough, that's where the house was. So, I mean, yeah, Lloyd, he has a good idea for where the colonial sites will be. And, I mean, of course, like he said, it just goes along with him doing it all the time. So,
yep. Guys, we're over an hour and a half, and we've had a really good show, but we've probably kept y'all about as long as we need to. Appreciate you calling in and joining us tonight, and looking forward to getting together with you guys and hunting again. But before we go, y'all give out your social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, what have you.
So be sure to check out Gone Diggin. That's Gone space Diggin. It's got all my most recent videos with you guys and Diggin Virginia 41. Actually, I'm probably going to do a pretty cool giveaway. I'm getting close to 1,000 subscribers, so I'm pretty excited about that. And also, if you guys are on Facebook, check out Virginia Diggers. That's Bruce Adwell's page. A lot of really cool stuff going on there.
And I'll tell you, they do some good videos, and they've got some good content on their pages. I highly recommend it. And also, before we close, and you guys hang on the line, I'll close the show out, and we'll say our goodbyes then. But if you like metal detecting podcasts like this, be sure and check out Beyond Sight and Sound on Sunday night and Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Check out American Digger Relic Roundup at 9 o'clock on Monday. That's Eastern Time. All Metal Mode is also on at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on Monday. And then History Seekers with Heath Jones and Scott Duncan is on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. And Hardcore Metal Detecting on Thursdays and Saturdays at 8 o'clock Eastern. And obviously, me and Jeff on Relics Radio, we are here every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we look forward to seeing all you guys next week. Until then, get out there and dig some history. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or iTunes. Please take a minute and hit the like button and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Diggin with 7 or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook page. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to digginwith7@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us next Thursday night, and until then, get out there and dig some history.